Hello, everyone. I want to speak about early prenatal diagnosis of cloacal and anal atresia. Most of them were between weeks 14 and 16 with my malformed English. The truth about the physiology of fetal defecation. According to the current concepts, the human fetus does not defecate, and passage of meconium into the amniotic fluid is an indicator of fetal distress. The first who described fetal defecation was Tzifzi from Ankara, Turkey, and I hope I pronounce his name correctly. In 1996, in a rabbit, he did experimental studies. And in another study, he spoke about a new concept about the fetal defecation. And in 1998, he wrote that there is a continuous defecation throughout the whole pregnancy and continuous eating of the meconium. In 1999, he published another paper in the Journal of Pediatrics that fetal distress does not affect in utero defecation, but does impair the clearance of the amniotic fluid. The first to describe fetal defecation in uterus was Ramon Cajal from Spain. And he wrote in the White Journal, wrote that in utero defecation between weeks 14 and 22 of gestation, the stools are whitish. He described a defecation and the stools, week 17. And I want to speak about the intrauterine sludge, another case. And the intrauterine sludge has many different appearance, like homogeneous, less homogeneous, with hyperechogenic spots, and it flies in the uterine cavities. And we can see the first clue of fetal defecation, week 20. And another case of fetal defecation. And the fetus has also constipation, in the case of Alberto Olavaria from Venezuela. And the fetus has also have diarrhea, and here is simultaneously urination and defecation, a case of Efrat Zev from Israel. And the same Efrat described also a fetus with a constipation with 26. The early fetal defecation in 3D was described by Inon Gilboa, also from Israel, week 15. And here the toilet paper is finished to this fetus and what was remained. And here we can see the sludge. In 100% of the cases in which I look in the vaginal approach, there is a uterine sludge. And the amniotic sludge is not a sign for prematurity, which was described in some article in the White Journal. It's a complete mistake. Actually, the sludge, we believe that the sludge is a conglomerate of fetal feces and other intrauterine material like blood cells, like clots, like the foliage of the cells from the skin, for the skin of the fetus. And here I'm showing that the fetus also eats its defecation. And this slide is a promo to the next slide. And this is a slide in which I was describing to my student the concept of the equilibrium of the amniotic fluid volume. And you can say to your students also that with the fetus, it is the same. There are three types of anal atresia. One, low lesion, in which the colon remains close to the skin. The second, high lesion, in which the colon is higher up in the pelvis and there is a fistula connecting the rectum and the bladder, urethra, or vagina. And the most severe is the persistent cloaca, and I want to speak about prenatal diagnosis of a persistent cloaca. It's a sagittal section colon, which is separated from the vagina, which is separated from the bladder. In cases of cloaca, all are there united to single canal or single channel. First case report, she came from the States to do the early exam. The early exam, as I know, done only in Israel. And what I saw week 15, there was external genitalia. I thought it was hypospadias or micropenis, associated with enlargement of an abnormal location of right colon and enterolithiasis. And here you can see the case. I sure it is a male. Little bit abnormal penis, bowed. And week 15, you can see enlargement of the right colon, which is behind the urinary bladder with echogenic spots, and the lumen is covered, the wall of the lumen is covered by the whitish material. Week 18, the same fetus. And she performed amniotic fluid and flew back to the United States. We were surprised because the chromosomes were XX. There was a normal amniotic fluid digestive enzymes level, and usually they are normal in cases of cloaca and GAT urinary fistula. Normal evaluation of the ambiguous genitalia, no SRI. And she was followed by three the most expert sonologists in the USA between weeks 19 and 40. And they told her that it was a normal female, normal external genitalia, normal GAT tract. Only on week 36 appeared a cyst in the lower abdomen, and the interpretation of this sonologist was that it is ovarian cyst. And this is the 3D, which was done by one of the best American sonologists, and told her that it's a normal female. To my opinion, it's not normal because the phallus or the clitoris is upper elevated and hypertrophic. And she delivered a girl with cloaca. Here you can see this, the diversion of the enteric system, mystoma, the diversion of the urinary system. And in 1 year old, after major operations, she had a severe renal failure. Second case, week 16, you can see an echogenic structure with an acoustic shadow beneath it. And look at the colon. The colon is, the wall of the colons is covered by a hyperechogenic material. And the second, well, and this echogenic material and the echogenic focus with the acoustic shadow behind it, it is called enterolithiasis, and it is very frequent that horses have enterolithiasis. In very, very rare cases, also human beings from idiopathic reasons had enterolithiasis. In this case, the enterolithiasis caused to this man illus, and he was operated. In utero, if we combine the fetal meconium and the fetal urine or create a fistula, and this is the reason for fetal enterolithiasis. And week 17, operation of the case, and we can see the stones of the fetus, the stones, and we can see enterolithiasis with an acoustic shadow beneath it. The second, what we saw, the second tip that we saw a male but with an hypospadic appearance. And here is the ultrasound, and in the pathological department, Ina Naroditsky is one of our fetal pathologists, told me it's a male. I told her, if you will open the abdomen, you'll see the ovaries. And she opened the abdomen, and we can see the ovaries are connected to the uterus. And 3, huge and large right-sided malrotated sigma. Here it is the right side. And we can see right side, left side, malrotated huge sigma. And about the cloaca and external genitalia, we had 6 cases of early cloaca. In all of them, the early external genitalia were hypospadias-like. And I was not the first to describe this masculinization of external genitalia in fetus. It says in 1990, Neil from Australia wrote that female pseudo-hermatism in children with cloaca, and 3 patients he described with the cloaca and perverse renal function, endocrinal cases were normal. And another case, it's the case of the week 112 of Gentil, and it asked how can you explain conjoined twins, 1 male and 1 female? And it created a long discussion because the most sophisticated geneticians, and one says it's polar body twinning, the second MST, the third is a loss of Y chromosome, explanation which I couldn't understand. And even Professor Hopitz was within this discussion. But there's a simple explanation to this theory. The most logical explanation is that in cloaca, there are masculinized female genitalia in early pregnancy. Here you can see the cloaca. And here you can see the common canal, uterus bicornis, cloaca, and urinary bladder, and the right deviated sigma. Cloacal dysgenesis take-home message. Most of the pediatric surgeons say that it must be only in female. And the female must have the XX chromosome. And these abnormal genitalia, in most of the cases are transient. In some cases, they may remain ambiguous genitalia or a long phallus which extended upward. The second thing in cloaca, right descending sigma, dilatation of colon and enterolithiasis, and less common abnormalities are kidneys, bladders, ureters, and abnormal internal genitalia. So cloaca in female, XX. I want to speak about the 2 other types of anal atresia. According to our database, out of about 100,000 examinations, there were 20 cases of cloaca, 1 to 5,000. Out of these 20 cases, 90 were diagnosed between weeks 14 and 16. 2 or 10% cases were missed during the whole pregnancies. And early sonographic signs, and not in all fetuses they appear. 1, transient enlargement of colon. And this enlargement is usually right-sided or right-deviated sigma. In this case, it was left-sided. And in this case, it was right-sided. This is the right side. And from the right, the sigma beneath the urinary bladder, and another case of anal atresia. The presence of meconial sludge does not exclude anal atresia. We published a paper that in all cases of anal atresia, there was a sludge, and as I told before, it contains also other cells, not only the meconium. Why does the enlargement disappear after week 18-19? In all the cases, this enlargement disappears. But the enlargement does not disappear. It can camouflage. Using vaginal probe week 22 can demonstrate this enlargement. And here with the diagnosed anal atresia previous, and we can see week 22 abdominal normal, complete normal intestinal tract. But using the vaginal probe, we could see the enlargement of the colon, right colon, which was hidden by the transabdominal approach. And I asked the pediatric surgeons, how do they explain this right sigma, malrotated sigma? And all of them told me that when they operate these babies, the sigma is on the left. So my conclusion is that in most cases of cloaca and anal atresia, in the early pregnancy until week 20-something, they are left located sigma. Enterolithiasis in cases of high anal atresia, in case of urointestinal fistula. One case. Second case, you can see that all of the intestine is white with whitish material. Another case. Another sign, low level of intestinal enzymes. And we check when there is no gallbladder, when there is something in the intestinal tract, we send the amniotic fluid to France, to Paris, who have a very high experience in the level of amniotic fluid intestinal enzyme. In one of the cases in which it was disappeared week 18, the answer we got that the GTP is less than 1 percentile. The aminopeptidase is below the first percentile, intestinal alkaline phosphatase below the first percentile, and this profile can be observed in small bowel atresia or in low-level anal atresia or in perforated anus. However, high level of anal atresia associated with urodigestive fistula can be excluded. This profile is observed also in cystic fibrosis, also in trisomy 21. And in the case of Yuval Tzalel, in which when there is uterointestinal fistula, the level are normal. Why they are normal? Because the fetus urinates the intestinal enzyme through its penis, week 15. Looks at the urination of meconium. Another sign, no superficial meconial line. And we can see in normal fetus week 24, you can see that meconial line arrives very superficial. And in this case, we can see the meconium line arrives until the end of the almost to the skin. And in this case, it was anal atresia. You can see a long distance. It was a low anal atresia, a long distance between the rectum and the end of the colon. Another sign, flat buttock, no annals valley, I called it. And I described before the annals valley, there is a groove in the anus, and sometimes we can see the annals valley as compared to this flat buttocks. One of our autopsies, flat buttocks. Not in all the cases they appear. And no target sign. Target sign usually appears after week 20, 21. And this is week 23 target sign. And in this case, week 36, look, this is the anal sphincter. It's small meconium inside it. It's, of course, it's vagina. And two cases in which there is no target sign. It was the beginning of anal atresia, week 12. Sometimes I ask, how can we differentiate between high anal atresia and cloaca? Only through the abnormal external genitalia in chromosomal XX fetus. If it is normal, they are the same. We can have also false positive of anal atresia. In this case, it's from another hospital. And so, week 22, and the baby was aborted due to a diagnosis, which also maybe I also could do this diagnosis, and it was colonic stenosis. I want to show an original indirect tool to diagnose anal atresia in children, young children. Thank you very much for your listening. Bye.